I mean, my mind is a storm. I don't ever give up.
Change the world we live in today.
Well, overall, I think the world is pretty great right now.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a file that is, it's arguably one of the most complex, most controversial, and just significant stacks of research we have ever covered.
It really is.
We're not just looking at a biography today.
Yeah.
If you want a list of dates and stock prices and company acquisitions, you can find that on Wikipedia in like 5 minutes.
Right. That's not what this is.
That is not what we do here. We are here to look at the machinery of a human being who have, you could argue, effectively broken the mold of how we understand power in the 21st century.
It's a massive topic, and you're right to frame it that way. We are looking at a figure he's seen as two things at once. On one hand, he's the real-life Tony Stark.
Literally, yeah.
Literally the engineer who is single-handedly trying to save the human race from extinction. And then, depending on which geopolitical analyst or labor critic you read in our sources, he's a potential supervillain.
The supervillain or a dangerous technocrat.
A dangerous technocrat holding the keys to our collective future. We are, of course, talking about Elon Musk.
The polarization is just...
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Right.
I was reading through the source material, and it honestly feels like you're reading two completely different histories of the exact same timeline.
It really does.
But the goal for this deep dive, our mission really, is to try and cut through that noise. We want to parse through the memes, the headlines, the erratic tweets, and the fanboy worship to find the patterns.
Yeah, to find the underlying law.
Exactly. We want to understand the mechanics of obsession. How does one person accumulate this much unchecked influence over energy, transportation, space exploration, and now global information flow?
Exactly. And to do that, we have to adopt a very specific lens. We're doing this for the learner. We aren't here to take sides in some left versus right political debate.
No, not at all.
Or to decide if he's a good guy or a bad guy in some kind of moral sense. We are here to look at the inputs and the outputs. We want to understand the psychological forge that created him, the philosophy that drives him, and the very legitimate ethical questions that are raised by the empire he's built.
So let's set the stage. We are going to break this down sort of chronologically, but also thematically. We're going to look at his childhood, his first fortunes, the near collapse of everything in 2008.
A huge year.
A huge year. Then his shift into a geopolitical power player, and finally the frontier of brain-computer interfaces. It's a lot to cover.
It is, but every single part of it is necessary to understand the current moment. You can't understand why he bought Twitter or why he's building a robot without understanding what happened to him in Pretoria back in the 1980s.
Let's jump right into it then. Section 1, the forge. We're going back to Pretoria, South Africa. And I think for a lot of people, there's this assumption that Musk was this wealthy, pampered heir to an emerald fortune who just bought his way into success.
Yeah.
But the sources, they paint a much darker, much more complicated picture.
Yeah, that emerald mine story is one of those things that has just taken on a life of its own on the internet.
It's everywhere.
It is. The reality, according to the biographies and interviews we have, is that while his father, Elon Musk, was a successful engineer and property developer, and yes, he did have a stake in a mine at one point, the upbringing it was not a life of luxury and ease. It was a life of psychological volatility.
Volatile feels like an understatement. Musk himself has described his father as brilliant at engineering, capable of building anything from scratch, but just incredibly difficult as a human being.
Difficult is the polite way of putting it. The sources describe a home environment that was psychologically violent. There are accounts of these hours-long lectures, shouting matches, just a general atmosphere where Elon is told he was worthless.
Wow.
There's a specific detail in the biography where his father would tell him, "You are weak, you are a loser, you are stupid."
Okay, I want to pause on that for a second. Imagine you are a child. Your father is your primary model for authority and, protection. And that figure is telling you repeatedly that you are defective, that you are weak,
It creates a very specific kind of trauma response. I mean, when your parent dismantles your self-worth like that, you tend to develop this bottomless need to prove them wrong.
Of course.
It creates a hole in your psyche that no amount of money or success can ever really fill. You see this in high achievers often, but with Musk, it's just dialed up to 11. He isn't just trying to succeed, he is trying to conquer reality itself to prove he isn't the loser his father said he was.
And it wasn't just inside the house, right? The sources highlight that he was having a terrible time at school, too.
Oh, absolutely.
He was the youngest in his class, he was small for his age, and he had Asperger's, which made him socially awkward. He wasn't the kid out playing rugby, he was the kid correcting the other kid's grammar.
Which, in a rough-and-tumble South African boys' school in the 1980s, is basically painting a target on your back.
A huge target.
The bullying was severe. There's one incident that really stands out as a pivotal moment in his life. The stairwell incident.
Yeah, this one is just... it's hard to read. He was sitting on the top of a concrete stairwell, and a group of boys snuck up behind him, kicked him in the head, and just threw him down the stairs.
And they didn't stop there. They followed him down and beat him while he was unconscious. He was hospitalized. He blacked out. He had to have surgery years later to fix a deviated septum from the damage. I mean, this wasn't just kids being kids.
No, this was assault.
It was a brutal assault.
And here's the kicker. This is the part that I think really defines the Forge. You get beaten up, you go to the hospital, you go home, you expect your dad to say, "Oh my God, are you okay? We're calling the police."
Right, what any normal parent would do.
But according to the sources, his father's reaction was to berate him.
Right. His father essentially sided with the bullies. He told Elon, "You are weak, you provoked them, you need to toughen up." That moment is the key.
It has to be.
When the world hurts you physically and your father hurts you psychologically, you have two choices. You either crumble and become a victim, or you develop a defense mechanism that is just impenetrable.
And for Musk, that defense mechanism was escape. But he didn't, run away into the woods. He ran away into his mind.
Exactly. He escaped into logic. He realized that the world of people emotions, social hierarchies, fathers, was chaotic, unpredictable, and painful.
But the world of physics.
The world of physics, the world of computers, that was deterministic. If you write the code correctly, the program runs. It never lies to you. It never hits you. It's safe.
The sources mentioned he would read encyclopedias.
Oh.
And not just look things up, but literally read them cover to cover.
He was consuming information to understand the rules of the universe. He was trying to find a rule book for a world that made no sense to him. And this leads to his first real act of agency. At age 12, he coded a video game called Blaster.
A little space shooter game.
The space shooter, right. But think about the context. This is 1984, a 12-year-old kid writing code. And he didn't just write it for fun, he sold it to a computer magazine for $500.
That $500 is so symbolic, isn't it? It's the first time he realizes my brain can change my reality.
Precisely. It was proof of concept. He realized that his intellect was a tool that could generate resources. He wasn't just a victim of his environment anymore. He could build things that controlled his environment. And that desire to control his environment eventually morphed into a desire to leave that environment entirely.
He left South Africa at 17. And the source makes a really interesting point here.
Yeah.
He didn't just leave because he wanted to travel. He saw South Africa as a place where the future wasn't going to happen.
That is a very harsh, very pragmatic assessment for a teenager to make. He looked at the apartheid regime, he looked at the economy, and he just saw a dead end. He looked at the United States mostly through the lens of, movies and technology, and he saw the frontier.
A place where ambition was rewarded.
A place where ambition was rewarded, not punished.
So he takes off. He lands in Canada first, because that was the easiest path to North America due to his mother's citizenship. And that rich kid narrative really just falls apart here. He wasn't staying at the Ritz.
No, not at all. He was working manual labor. He was shoveling grain in a silo, cutting logs with a chainsaw. The sources describe him arriving with almost nothing. He eventually transfers to UPenn in the US, and this is where he picks up his weapons, so to speak.
Physics and economics.
It's such a powerful combination. Physics gave him first principles thinking, the ability to boil a problem down to its fundamental truths, ignoring analogy and convention.
Right.
And economics gave him the understanding of how value is created and distributed. He realized that if you understand the laws of the universe, which is physics, and the laws of the system, which is economics, you can essentially engineer the future.
Which brings us perfectly to section 2, the first fortune. He graduates, heads to Silicon Valley in 1995. This is like the dawn of the internet boom.
And again, He starts with nothing. He had $2,000, a car, and a computer. He actually applied for a job at Netscape, which was the Google of its day.
Huge at the time.
And he couldn't even get an interview. So he did what he always does when the door is closed. He built his own door. He started Zip2.
Let's talk about the reality of those Zip2 days, because I think people see the billionaire now and they just forget the eating glass phase.
The sources are very descriptive here. He rented this tiny office in Palo Alto. He couldn't afford an apartment, so he slept on a beanbag chair right next to his desk. He showered at the YMCA down the street.
There's a story that he literally told his employees to kick him awake in the morning when they arrived so he could get back to work.
That's the hardcore culture in its infancy. He wasn't asking his team to do anything. It wasn't doing double. Zip2 was, it was essentially an online Yellow Pages. Maps and directions for newspapers.
Pretty unglamorous stuff.
Very unglamorous, but it was valuable. Compaq bought it in 1999, and Musk walked away with $22 million.
Okay, so he is 27 years old. He has $22 million in cash. The rational, normal human thing to do is buy a house, put the money in an index fund, maybe buy a nice car, and just relax. You've won the game.
He did buy the nice car, the McLaren F1.
Which he famously crashed.
Which he promptly crashed while trying to show off to Peter Thiel. But he didn't relax. He pivoted immediately to X.com.
And this was his attempt to disrupt banking.
And this was pure audacity. He looked at the financial system paper checks, 3-day transfer times, and just saw massive inefficiency. He wanted to digitize money. X.com eventually merged with Confinity to become PayPal. But this era gave him another massive psychological scar. The coup.
Oh, this is a brutal story. He had just got married to his first wife, Justine. They leave for their honeymoon. They are literally on the plane. And while he's in the air, the board and Peter Thiel organize a coup to fire him as CEO.
Can you imagine that? You build a company, you take a week off to celebrate your marriage, and by the time you land, your keys don't work. You've been ousted.
Most people would serve lawsuits. They would burn the place down in a rage.
Musk didn't. He accepted the role of shareholder and advisor. He kept his eye on the prize. But the psychological impact was profound. The sources suggest this solidified his obsession with control.
Right.
He decided he would never again be in a position where someone else could fire him from his own company. And you see this later with Tesla and SpaceX. He structures the super voting share, so he is a dictator for life.
But financially, that patience paid off. eBay buys PayPal, and Musk walks away with $165 million. And this is the divergence point.
This is where the story stops being about a successful entrepreneur and starts being about something else entirely. Most people with $165 million retire.
Immediately.
Musk views money not as a destination, something to enjoy, but as fuel.
Fuel for what?
Fuel to do things that are objectively impossible. He took that entire fortune, and I mean all of it, and he split it between two impossible ideas, SpaceX and Tesla.
I love the story about the Russian rockets. It sounds like something out of a spy novel.
It really does. Before he started building his own rockets, he tried to buy them. He went to Russia to buy refurbished ICBMs to send a greenhouse to Mars.
As you do.
As you do. He walks into a meeting with these hardened Russian rocket scientists. He's this young, nerdy dot-com millionaire. They did not take him seriously.
The source says one of them literally spat on the floor.
Yes. They laughed at him. They thought he was a tourist. They quoted him this exorbitant price like $8 million per rocket, thinking he would just go away.
And this is where that first principles thinking kicks in again, right? On the flight home, instead of being defeated, he pulls up a spreadsheet.
He breaks it down. What is a rocket made of? Aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He looked at the commodity prices of those materials on the global market, and he realized that the material cost of a rocket was only about 3% of the price the Russians were quoting him.
3%.
The rest was just inefficiency, bureaucracy, and supply chain bloat.
So he says, I can build it myself cheaper.
Exactly. He realized that the market price was wrong, the atomic price was right, so he founded SpaceX to prove it.
But proof is expensive. Which leads us to Section 3, the crucible of 2008. The outline calls this the do-or-die year.
It's so hard to overstate how bad 2008 was, not just for the world economy, but for Musk personally. He was divorced, the press was mocking him, and both his companies were dying.
Let's start with SpaceX. They had tried to launch the Falcon 1 3 times.
And all 3 had failed. And rockets fail spectacularly. The first one had a fuel leak and just caught fire on the launch pad. The second one had an engine issue. The third one, and this was the heartbreaker, it actually made it up, but during stage separation, the first stage bumped into the second stage because of some residual thrust. The whole thing spun out of control and just disintegrated.
That third failure must have been devastating. I read they had the champagne ready to go.
It was crushing, and they were out of money. They had enough parts and cash for exactly one more launch, the fourth Falcon 1. If that rocket failed, SpaceX was bankrupt. The dream was over.
And at the exact same time, Tesla is in a complete death spiral.
It's late 2008. The global financial crisis has frozen all the credit markets. GM and Chrysler are going bankrupt. And here's Musk trying to sell a $100,000 electric sports car, the Roadster, which was plagued with production delays and cost overruns.
The media was running Tesla death watch columns, weren't they?
Daily.
The sources describe Musk's physical state during this time. He was waking up screaming, he was vomiting from stress, he had to borrow money from friends just to pay his rent because he had liquidated everything he owned to keep the companies alive.
He describes it as eating glass and staring into the abyss. He was betting his reputation, his fortune, and his sanity on 2 complete long shots.
And then, September 2008, the fourth launch.
The team is exhausted. They are running on fumes. The rocket goes up. The first stage separates cleanly. The second stage ignites. And for the first time in history, a privately developed liquid fuel rocket reaches orbit.
It was a triumph.
It was a technical triumph, absolutely. But it didn't put cash in the bank. They were still weeks away from missing payroll.
And then comes the Christmas miracle.
It really was down to the wire. On December 23, 2008, NASA called. They awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the International Space Station.
Wow.
That contract literally saved the company. It provided the steady revenue stream they needed to survive. And because SpaceX was saved, Musk could then leverage that to keep Tesla afloat until he could secure more funding.
Such a Hollywood ending to that chapter. And speaking of Hollywood, this is right around the time Robert Downey Jr. enters the picture.
Right. John Favreau and RDJ were prepping for the first Iron Man movie. They wanted Tony Stark to feel modern, not like the old Howard Hughes version. Downey met with Musk. He sat in the Tesla factory. He watched him work. He wanted to capture that specific frequency, the genius, the erratic energy, the risk-taking.
So the Tony Stark we see on screen
is, in many ways, a direct reflection of the Elon Musk of 2008.
And that narrative just stuck. He became the real-life Iron Man, the guy building the future. But as we move into Section 4, the empire of influence, the narrative starts to shift. We go from the underdog inventor to the technocrat.
This is the era where he stops just being a CEO and starts becoming a geopolitical actor. And nothing illustrates this better than Starlink.
Starlink is incredible technology global internet from space. But the implications are, they're kind of terrifying.
It turns out that when you control the internet infrastructure for the entire planet, you have a lot of power. The prime example is the Ukraine war.
Right. When Russia invaded, they wiped out Ukraine's communications. Musk stepped in and sent Starlink terminals. It saved them.
It did.
Yeah.
It allowed them to coordinate defenses, run drone strikes, keep the government running online. He was a hero.
For a while.
But then came the complexity. The sources detail an incident near Crimea. The Ukrainian military was planning this massive drone boat attack on the Russian naval fleet docked in Sevastopol. They needed Starlink coverage to guide the drones. They asked Musk to turn it on.
And he said no.
He refused. He believed that such an attack would provoke Russia into a nuclear response, a Pearl Harbor moment, he called it. So he effectively stopped a military operation by a sovereign nation against an invader based on his own personal risk assessment.
That is the crucial point. Whether you agree with his assessment or not, the fact that he gets to make that call is the issue.
Exactly. We have never been in a situation where a private citizen has a kill switch for a war. He didn't consult the president or NATO. He just decided. That is the definition of a technocrat. It raises the question, do we want our foreign policy dictated by elected officials or by the CEO of the company that owns the satellites?
It's a staggering amount of power. And we see a similar, though maybe less lethal, power play with his acquisition of Twitter.
The Twitter acquisition was never about money. It was about narrative control. He called Twitter the digital town square, and he believed it had been captured by what he calls the woke mind virus.
And his solution was the hardcore reset.
He fired 80% of the staff. He went from 8,000 employees to 1,500 in a matter of months. He sent that famous email at 2 a.m. telling people to click a link if they wanted to stay and be extremely hardcore.
It was a purge. The source mentions he fired engineers who corrected him publicly on the platform. He fired people who didn't laugh at his jokes or who pushed back on his ideas in meetings.
It created an echo chamber. And while he claims to be a free speech absolutist, the sources point out that he has reinstated accounts like Donald Trump and Alex Jones, while at the same time suspending journalists who criticize him or track his jet.
And he has complied with government censorship requests in places like Turkey and India, often it seems, to protect his Tesla manufacturing interests there.
It reveals the paradox, doesn't it? When you own the platform, free speech often means speech that I agree with, or, speech that doesn't hurt my other businesses. He has effectively turned X into a tool for his own political and cultural battles. He's tilting the global conversation.
So we have physical infrastructure with Starlink, social infrastructure with X, and energy infrastructure with Tesla. But Section 5, the ethical frontier, takes us into the biological infrastructure.
Neuralink. This is where the story goes from Iron Man to straight-up Black Mirror.
The promise of Neuralink is beautiful. Curing blindness, helping paralyzed people walk again by bridging the gap in their spinal cords. I mean, it's noble.
It is noble, but the method is brutal. The sources highlight the animal testing involved. We're talking about 1,500 animals, monkeys, pigs, sheep killed during the development process.
There are these horrific reports of monkeys chewing their fingers off from stress, brain hemorrhages, botched surgeries where the implants were put in wrong.
It's the Silicon Valley ethos of move fast and break things, but applied to biology. When you break code, you debug it. When you break a brain, you get suffering. Musk argues that this is a utilitarian calculus, that the suffering of these animals is worth it if we can save humanity from obsolescence.
Obsolescence.
This is his core fear regarding AI. He believes that artificial intelligence is getting so smart so fast that humans will soon be like house cats to the AI. Cute, maybe loved, but functionally irrelevant.
House cats. Wow, that is a humbling image.
So his solution is Neuralink. He wants to increase the bandwidth between our brains and the cloud. Right now, we communicate with our thumbs on screens. It's painfully slow. He wants a direct, high-speed connection so we can merge with the AI.
But the sources raise the huge ethical dilemma here. If your brain is connected to the cloud and the cloud is owned by a private corporation, what happens to your privacy?
What happens to your free will? If the AI suggests a thought and it feels like your thought, how do you even know the difference? Are you hackable? Can someone hold your motor cortex for ransom?
It's terrifying. And it ties right into the AI paradox. Musk has spent years warning us that AI is summoning the demon.
He calls it the biggest existential threat to humanity, worse than nukes. And yet, he is building XAI. He is building the Optimus robot. He is buying thousands and thousands of GPUs.
So why build the demon if you are afraid of it?
The charitable interpretation is that he believes AI is inevitable, so he wants to build the safe version, a truth GPT, that understands the universe and won't kill us.
Okay.
The cynical interpretation is that he wants to be the one holding the leash. He doesn't trust OpenAI or Google to control the demon. He only trusts himself.
I alone can fix it.
That seems to be the recurring theme, doesn't it?
Which leads perfectly into Section 6, management style and the human toll. Because to build all this, he requires a very certain kind of workforce.
The hardcore workforce. We touched on this with Zip 2, but it has scaled up dramatically. The sources describe a culture of fear and devotion. 120-hour work weeks are standard during crunch times.
There are those stories of engineers sleeping on the floor under their desks at the Tesla factory during the Model 3 hell. Not because they had to, but because Musk was walking the floor and they needed to show they were committed.
He leads by suffering. He sleeps on the floor too. He works until he collapses, and he expects everyone else to do the same. If you say something is impossible, he fires you. If you say, we need more time, he questions your commitment to the mission.
The source quotes him saying, "Success has a way of taking more than it gives."
He is aware of the cost. He has back pain, neck surgery, insomnia. He admits to being lonely. He has a chaotic family life with multiple divorces and estranged children. He is not a happy man, by most accounts. He is a driven man.
It's a philosophy of sacrifice. He believes the mission, getting to Mars, solving energy, saving the species, is so important that the collateral damage is justified.
It's utilitarianism on a galactic scale. If you believe you are saving 8 billion people and all future generations, then burning out a few thousand engineers or missing your kid's birthday, well, that seems like a small price to pay.
It's hard to argue with the results, but it's very easy to argue with the methods.
And that is the tension we are left with. That's the core of the whole thing.
So let's bring this all together in our outro. We've covered the trauma of the forge, the risk of the fortune, the miracle of 2008, and the rise of the technocrat. How do we synthesize all this?
I think we have to look at the two avatars presented in our sources. Side A is the visionary. This is the man who forced the entire automotive industry to go electric.
That's undeniable.
Without him, we are likely still driving gas cars for another 20 years. He is the man who landed rockets on ships, making space access check enough that Mars is actually a serious conversation. He is trying to ensure consciousness survives.
Okay, that's side A and side B.
Side B is the billionaire with unchecked power. The man who controls the internet in war zones, who shifts political landscapes with a tweet, who treats employees as expendable fuel, and who is rushing toward brain implants and AI despite all the risks.
And this brings us back to that final metaphor from the sources. The evolution from Tony Stark to Dr. Doom. And for those who aren't comic book nerds, Dr. Doom isn't just a simple bad guy.
No, and that's the key. Dr. Doom is a genius. He is a man of order. He believes that the world is a chaotic, messy place that is heading for destruction. And he believes that he is the only person smart enough and strong enough to save it.
He wants to save the world.
But he believes the only way to save it is to rule it.
A benevolent dictatorship of the intellect.
Exactly. And when you look at Musk's actions, the desire to control the platform, the desire to control the AI, the desire to control the colony on Mars, it feels very Doom-esque. He wants to save us, but only on his terms.
And that raises the provocative thought for our listeners to take away today.
If the only way to save the world, to solve climate change, to prevent extinction, requires one person to have more power and more resources than any government, is the price too high?
Does humanity need a savior? Or does it need better systems? Because if we rely on a savior, we are betting everything on that savior's mental state and benevolence remaining intact forever.
And as we've seen with the Crucible and the Forge, that mental state is forged in trauma and driven by a compulsion to control. That is a fragile foundation for the future of civilization.
It is a massive question, and we aren't going to solve it today. But we hope this deep dive gave you the tools to look at the headlines differently. Don't just see the meme or the stock price. See the pattern. See the mechanics of the machine he has built.
Absolutely. Go back to the stack. Read the biographies. Watch the launch videos. Decide for yourself if we are looking at a hero, a villain, or just a human being who has scaled his own trauma to a planetary level.
Thanks for diving in with us. It's been a heavy one, but an important one.
Stay curious.
Okay, let's unpack this a little more.
Yeah.
Looking back at what we just discussed, I feel like we really need to dig a bit deeper into that fuel concept we touched on in section 2.
Yeah, good point.
We mentioned it, but I don't think we fully articulated just how weird that behavior is for a billionaire.
You're right, it is a complete anomaly. Usually when people make hundreds of millions, they diversify. They focus on wealth preservation. Musk did the opposite. He focused on wealth destruction in service of a goal.
Wealth destruction. That's a great way to put it.
He calls this allocating capital to R&D. He views his bank account not as his money, but as the budget for the Mars mission.
That reframing is crucial. If you see money as points in a game, you want to hoard them. If you see money as gas for a car, you want to burn it to get somewhere.
Exactly. And he is driving that car at 200 miles per hour. That's why he is cash poor so often. He puts every single drop of fuel into the engine. It explains why he lives in a $50,000 modular house in Texas near the launch site.
He sold all his mansions.
He liquidated his entire real estate portfolio. He doesn't want the baggage of stuff. He wants the agility of the mission.
It's almost monastic in a way, a very high-tech, jet-setting monk.
A monk with a flamethrower. But yes, it's a singularity of purpose that is just so rare. Most people have conflicting desires. Comfort versus ambition, family versus work. Musk seems to have collapsed all his desires into one single vector, the future.
Let's also circle back to the hardcore culture. We talked about the 120-hour weeks, but we didn't talk about the attraction of it. I mean, why do people work for him?
That is the other side of the coin. Talented engineers, the best in the world, they flock to him. Why? Because he offers them the hardest problems on Earth. If you are the best structural engineer in the world, do you want to design a better toaster or do you want to design the rocket that goes to Mars?
You want the rocket, no question.
He sells significance. He offers people a chance to be part of history. And for a certain type of person, the type who is also obsessed, that is worth a sleeping bag on the floor. It's a cult of high performance.
We are the special forces. That's how he frames it.
Yes. We are the Marines, The other companies are the regular army. It's safer there, but we get the job done. It's a very seductive narrative for high achievers.
I also want to touch on the humor aspect we mentioned. The didn't laugh at his jokes, firings. It sounds so petty on the surface, but is there a deeper psychological signal there?
I think it signals the need for affirmation. Remember the forge. Remember the father calling him a loser. When he makes a joke and people laugh, it validates his status. It says, I'm the leader, I'm clever.
And when they don't?
When they don't, it triggers that deep-seated insecurity. It's a reminder that even the most powerful man in the world still has that 12-year-old boy inside him seeking approval.
That is the tragedy of it, in a way. You can conquer the world, but you can't conquer your own childhood.
That is the human condition. Musk just projects his condition onto the stars.
What about the future of X, or Twitter? We talked about the political shift. Where does the source material suggest this is going? Is he trying to become a politician?
No, I don't think he wants to run for office. He thinks office is too slow, too bureaucratic. He wants to be the kingmaker.
Yeah.
By controlling the platform where the debate happens, he shapes who wins. We saw this with his interviews on Spaces. He wants X to be the operating system of global democracy.
But an operating system coded by one guy.
Coded by one guy with very specific, very idiosyncratic beliefs about what woke means and what freedom means, and that is the risk. We are moving all our public discourse onto a privately owned server.
And finally, let's go deeper on the AI safety argument. He started OpenAI, he left, now he's criticizing it. Is there a world where he is actually right? Where OpenAI or Google create something dangerous because they are too corporate?
There is a valid argument there. A corporate AI might be optimized for ad revenue or shareholder value above all else. A profit-maximizing AI could be dangerous in subtle ways, manipulating us to buy things or stay addicted to screens. Musk argues his AI will be curious and truth-seeker.
Truth-seeking?
But who's true? That is the million-dollar question. Or the trillion-dollar question. Is truth objective or is it programmed? Musk believes he knows the objective truth, but his critics would argue his version of truth is heavily biased by his own experiences and his own echo chambers.
So we are betting on his bias being better than Google's bias.
Pick your poison. The woke AI or the based AI, we are entering the era of ideological artificial intelligence.
That is a sentence that makes my head hurt. Ideological artificial intelligence.
Get used to it. It's going to define the next decade.
And Neuralink. I can't shake the house cat thing. Do you think he would actually get the chip himself?
He says he will. He says he will be patient zero for the commercial rollout. If he does, if he actually merges with the AI, then we truly have a Dr. Doom scenario. A super genius with a computer-enhanced brain controlling the world's infrastructure.
At that point, is he even human anymore?
He would be something post-human. And maybe that's his goal all along, to leave humanity behind, not just by going to Mars, but by evolving into a new species.
Homo Deus, man as God.
Hey.
Well, on that existential cliffhanger, I think we have truly exhausted the stack. This has been fascinating.
It has. It's a story that is still being written every day in real time.
And we are all just living in the footnotes.
For better or for worse.
All right, to the learner, take this, chew on it, disagree with it. Go read the biography by Walter Isaacson. Go read the Ashley Vance book. Look at the Tesla files. Do your own deep dive.
Information is power. Don't let anyone else do the thinking for you.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.